This week's 3 for 3, Managing Oneself by Peter F. Drucker. Pretty awesome book. Might be number 1 or top 3 in my list. So, yep. What'd you think?
I really liked it. I obviously liked it. But I thought you just want to talk bullet points?
Sure. I mean, we could do that.
Okay. Well, I think it this is a good book for talking about understanding yourself as well as relationships with others. So, even though it's more geared towards like business, like coworker interactions, definitely applicable to all walks of life.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing, when I first heard the title, Managing Oneself, I was actually a little bit skeptical because I was like, oh man, it's going to be another emotional intelligence book. And I'm just like, But it's actually more about, what?
Dramatic.
Yeah, I know. So dramatic. It's actually more about managing your life, right? Like, It's like you are your own manager in this world where it's not an industrialized world now, right? Like the information age, everybody like manages themselves. And that's really what the book's all about, is how do you identify your own strengths and then manage to that so that you can be successful later in life. And I think a couple of the points in the book were really, were pretty powerful actually. So like the one point for me that I thought was amazing was that when you have a conflict between like what your skills are and what you value in life, values trump skills.
Right.
Which I, like after reading it, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But I've definitely been in situations in life where like, I went to West Point and, thought like leadership, that was like a skill. And I'm obviously pretty good at leadership and management, but I hate managing. Right? Like I just don't like doing it. And the decision to leave management and get into just technical stuff that I really like, acquiring knowledge and then like coaching young developers, like that's when my career finally took off. And, I think if I had read this book 10, 15 years ago, I think things would have been a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too that he kind of wraps it up with talking about, what does he title it? Let's just look. Taking responsibility for relationships. Yeah, I just really liked that. Like he talks about values and everything. This is kind of the bringing it all together. You're responsible for relationships. You have to ask the questions and you have to tell people, right? Like, these are my strengths. This is what you can expect me to achieve, and this is how I learn and work best. Right. And then on the flip side, he says you should be asking people those questions too.
I think that's like a really good point just in general. Right. Like when you're forging a relationship, whether it's with a boss or a coworker or a friend or a spouse, right? Like laying it out very plainly, like this is what works for me and this doesn't work for me. Right. I think that's really important. I know in our marriage, when we've had issues, it's when we're not communicating like that. And on the flip side, like, everyone says, oh, the first year of your marriage is like the worst. And we had a great first year of marriage. Right. And I think that was because we were both really comfortable with like giving and receiving feedback. Right?
Well, and just communicating, like, I learn better this way, or those are things he talks about too. But to me, like that was kind of my favorite point. Yeah, I suppose. So.
Yeah, there was a quote in here that I really liked. Yeah, so the section is basically talking about like here we go. Discover where your intellectual arrogance is causing disabling ignorance and overcome it. Taking pride in such ignorance is self-defeating. It is essential to remedy your bad habits. And then later on he goes and he talks about, you know, like this is especially true for like technical people like myself. This is something I struggled with like when I was in my early 20s, especially like right after West Point. I was still trying to adjust to like being a civilian. I just could not understand the value of like working well with other people because I thought it really was all about like your skills, right? Like just getting the job done. And I was really good at that. But I was constantly getting like clipped by my boss or my coworkers, be like, hey, you're kind of being a punk. And, you know,
you took pride in getting things done and you didn't care about those shortcomings.
Right. He actually calls that out specifically.
That's your intellectual arrogance that he's referring to.
Yeah. So first-rate engineers, for instance, tend to take pride in not knowing anything about people. Yeah. So later on, he says, at the same time, feedback will also reveal when the problem is a lack of manners. Manners are the lubricating oil of an organization, which I thought was amazing. Like, you know, I mean, obviously there are certain people like you that are more emotionally in tuned, right? But then there are people like me that are far more analytical, and this is an area that we slip up, and he actually like calls it out. He says, it's a law of nature that two moving bodies in contact with each other create friction. This is as true for human beings as it is for inanimate objects. Manners, simple things like saying please and thank you, and knowing a person's name or asking after her family, enable two people to work together. Bright people, especially bright young people, like I used to be, still bright, not so young, often do not understand this. So if analysis shows that someone's brilliant work fails again and again, as soon as cooperation from others is required, it probably indicates a lack of courtesy. That is a lack of manners. And I thought that that was actually insightful not only for, you know, the intellectuals like myself, but it actually works pretty well for the emotional people as well.
Well, because on the flip side, emotional people take pride in, you know, valuing emotions, but then you don't. It's almost like this, like I produce this, and so therefore, it's a good thing that I don't pay attention to the flip side of that, and that's not okay either. Like you want to be. I mean, like something else that he brings up is we should be asking ourselves, what should I be doing? Like, what should I contribute? Right? Like, because we live in a day and age where no one wants to be the cog that, like, it's not good to be told what to do. And it's also not okay to just, like, think that doing whatever you want actually produces anything of value. And that talks a little bit about, or the book, The One Thing, talks a little bit about that, right? Like, you know, you really have to focus and figure out, like, what's the one thing that you really should be doing. And I think, you know, both from a, you know, that's applicable in all areas of life, right? Absolutely.
You know, is it important that, and I know that this is something that we struggle with, you know, like, if the house isn't totally clean all the time, is that the most important thing? Probably not, right? You know, like, is it more important that our kids have good learning opportunities, you know, based on our values of, like, you know, we homeschool.
What is a more important priority?
Exactly. And being okay with that. You know, one of the things that I thought was a good kind of counterbalance to the, you know, manners are,
I was just thinking, but with the house example too, like, on the flip side, don't be proud that your house, like, oh, well, my house is messy because I care about my kids more than you.
No.
I mean, like, that's not okay either.
And I'm definitely not advocating that. I'm just saying that, you know, in the book, the one thing that he talks about, in The One Thing, is that, you have to be okay with the idea that you're going to focus on the most important thing and everything else just gets left by the wayside. You know, obviously you have to come back and kind of, he calls it counterbalancing, right? Like, bring it back into perspective. But at the same time, like, if there is one most important thing, you have to allow that to be the most important thing, and you can't expect yourself to get it done, everything.
Well, and just coming back to Drucker's book, I mean, like, that's part of what he ties all together. Like, know your strength. Know how you learn. You know what your value system is, so that you can say, what should I do? What strengths do I have, and how can I best implement those strengths so that I contribute something that's, like, the best of me, basically.
Right.
The best thing I can produce. And then at the very end, you know, like, take responsibility for relationships, even if it's not people that you, like, want to be best friends with or have a close relationship with. Doing those things, you can build trust, you know, and trust is really important no matter what kind of relationship you have, working or otherwise.
Yeah. There was actually a really good book that we read a number of years ago when we were in Malaysia. Remember Speed of Trust?
I do not remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your dad actually
probably did
introduce me to it. Yeah, it was a pretty cool book. But yeah, the quote that I was going to juxtaposition to the manners, you know, are the lubricating oil of an organization, and, you know, you analytical people out there should have manners. The flip side to that, though, is that there are a lot of people that kind of revel in their ignorance, right?
Absolutely.
And he says, you know, mathematicians are born, but everybody can learn trigonometry, right? And that's something that I think will be a common theme for us, you know, going forward, is that it's not okay whether you're an intellectual person and you don't have a whole lot of emotional tools, or you're an emotionally driven person, and, you know, like, not that you're not smart, but, like, you find value more with emotional stuff rather than, like, the logic side of the equation. It's not okay on either side of that, you know, river to not try and cross, right? Like, you have to have emotional tools, and you have to have a decent logical understanding of the world, right? Like,
well, you have to be able to think rationally, because emotion-based decisions generally don't end well.
Right. And that's actually what was that book that we just heard recently at Michaela's preschool? The Whole Brain
Child.
Yeah, and they talk about that once you get to a fully emotional state, then you become...
You are disconnected from your rational self, and the decisions you make are generally not, in retrospect, good ones.
Right, exactly. You know, it's obviously easy to look at a 3 or 4-year-old and say, oh man, they are having a tantrum.
Right.
But a 30 or 40-year-old will do the exact same thing, right? Like, they get super emotional about something because someone pushed their buttons, right? A marketeer, a politician.
Hashtag eat our feelings.
Right.
Or buy the car, compensate in other ways.
Right, exactly. And you see that with, the random Facebook posts, right? That you're just like, oh, come on, dude. I used to do that. It's so bad. It's 2 a.m. Are you coming to bed? No.
Yeah.
Why not? This person's wrong, and I need to tell them.
I have a 3-page essay to write on Facebook.
Yeah.
To let them know why they're wrong.
To let them know why they're wrong. Yeah. So, we've kind of strayed from the 3-minute...
kind of.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think it was good to talk about stuff.
Well, a good test run.
Yeah. And I think... And I think before we actually shoot the real deal, having a little riff session like this kind of helps to kind of just work out the ideas.
Yeah.
And
well, that's why I was saying, I don't think we need to have it scripted.
No.
I think running through it is good because we work out the kinks.
Yep.
And then we kind of okay, here's the bullet points that we covered that we want to actually talk about in our 3 minutes.
Right.
And maybe here are the quotes. If we're going to reference quotes, let's keep it to these ones or whatever.
Right.
So.
Right.
So we're not wasting time trying to find them.
Right.
So
right.
I was thinking actually we could put a little index card there. Bullet points, page numbers, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind actually holding stuff in our hands.
No, holding it, but I'm saying then you don't have to memorize what page was the quote on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean we definitely could type them out.
I'm brilliant.
Yeah, you are
I
brilliant.
know those things.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. All right.
My strengths. These are my strengths.
Planning. Yeah, mine's improvising.
Yep.
So.
And here we are.
Planned and improvised. All right. So, we are Paul and Kimberlee, and if you like this video, please make sure you hit the subscribe button somewhere.
You gotta get your hand up.
Yeah,
without blocking your
Don't
face.
block the face. It's down there somewhere.
Maybe we should put it up. It's easier to point up.
Point up. It's not up though. The subscribe button's gonna be down. It's gonna be down. Okay. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. It's somewhere, like that. It's over there. Somewhere.
Around here.
It's the subscribe button. hit that, and be sure to follow us on Twitter. I think our hashtag, or our handle is going to be Paul and Kimberlee. Yeah, hashtag. Yeah.
Because we're cool.
Because we're cool. We have our own hashtag.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you like this video, be sure to subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And follow us on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest.
Pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, social. All social. So,
yeah, socials.
Social, yeah. Hashtag social.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we will see you next week for 3 more thoughts in 3 more minutes.
Another 3 for 3.
Another 3 for 3.